Hey guys, Doc. Power washing a fence. I've been promising this video for weeks and weeks, and the day has finally come. But let me warn you before we start this video. Normally I take my time and I work on a video and set it up, and it's a lot of work. I didn't do that this time. I just happened to be out here grabbing a camera while this work was being done. So it's not my greatest video work, but I figured I'd give you some tips. We're going to discuss pressure washing a new fence, preparing it for staining. I'm also going to discuss cleaning an old fence, kind of an old nasty fence. So we'll talk about both of those. Before we get started, I'm going to make a staining video. That's why we're power washing this fence. So I'm going to make tomorrow, I'll be shooting a staining video. So click subscribe wherever that button is so you don't miss that one. The construction of this fence, that video will be done in about a week or two, hopefully. I got so many videos I'm trying queued up, ready to go. I'm going to be talking about the pressure washer a little bit and the accessories needed. As always, I put one link in the description. That link takes you to our website, and I put all the links on that page. Try and keep them updated so I don't have to post a bunch of links down below a video. So there's one link, that's it. So that's basically what we're going to do today. So like I said, no quality guaranteed in this video, but I'll just throw together pieces day by day what we did, so hold on. Whenever you have new wood, you're going to have something called mill glaze on it. Mill glaze basically is when, as this lumber is being run through the cutting process, what ends up happening is that blade heats up and it creates sort of a glaze from the resin, and you get a sawdust mixed in with it, so you get this glaze that sort of seals it up. That's why when you have a brand new fence, wait about a few days after the installation, come back, use that turbo nozzle or a straight nozzle, either one, and go ahead and give it a real strong pressure washing. The next thing that I'm going to do, I don't want all this sawdust that's on here. When you touch it, even after pressure washing, you're going to have sawdust on here. You don't want that layer, the glaze or the sawdust, in between the stain and the wood to get the most penetration. So Jesse's going to come here today and just take a real soft push broom. This is a soft bristle push broom, and it'll fit in between this. And you basically just run this, and I can see clouds of sawdust still coming up. This has been pressure washed already. I've got clouds of sawdust still coming off this. Now this is all ready for the stain. I'll do a staining video. I'm gonna do a quick staining video too. Now the stain that I use is I use Olympic Maximum, and the reason why I use it is because it's a hybrid and you don't have to worry about moisture content. When you get into oil-based stains, you have to really worry about moisture content, and you got to really worry about temperature. This Olympic Maximum that I like, you can come out the day after a rain and put it on. It even works probably better when your wood is not fully dry, because it slowly cures in versus fast drying in. I'll talk about this more in the staining video we do. Basically, imagine this. Take a drop of oil and then surround that oil with acrylic, and that's why it's a hybrid. You can clean it up with soap and water. Once it goes in here, the acrylic sort of starts to dissipate and suck in, and then it releases the oil. So it's probably the coolest, best stain. That's all I've ever used. I swear by it. And I'm going to be using a transparent, because this fence is so good looking. The wood is such a good quality. I'm going to use a transparent with just a light coat. I think it's called light honey when I stain it. So we've pressure washed it. We've gotten the mud off the bottom, which is really what I'm worried about. And I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll put the stain on. When you use a regular tip, just so you know here, when you use a regular tip, that 25-degree tip, and you get down to the bottom, you're going to get a lot of blowback, okay? Because it's a straight line and the water is all being forced in one direction. So when you get down the bottom, you're going to have a lot of blowback, and you're going to get mud, and you got to go back and rewash and rewash. That's one of the reasons why we're using this turbo nozzle. And it looks different in the video because of the frame rate. But it really, when you run it, it looks like a straight fan. I don't recommend using that on an old fence because it will leave, if you have a dark fence, it will leave those swirl marks on your wood. It'll disturb the grain. You're better off with the 25-degree nozzle and doing it. Okay, so now let's talk about old fences. Now I did a full video on cleaning in old fences. I'll put a link to it in the description so you don't have to go search for it. I'll link to it on the page below. Basically all you're going to do is when you clean an old fence, you need to determine how many panels you can do in a certain amount of time. So here's the steps. Number one, wet 2 panels. Come back with undiluted 30-second cleaner in a spray bottle, full strength. Spray 30-second cleaner, spray 30-second cleaner, and then start pressure washing. Pressure wash, pressure wash, pressure wash, and you're done. That's it. That's all you got to do to clean an old fence. We've done all the testing on all the products. I can't tell you how many times I've had to pressure wash fences. You can do the same method on decks as well too. Once that's done, you let it dry, and then you can go ahead and put your stain on it. So if you want to restain, you can now restain it. Again, the turbo nozzle on an old fence, if it's dark, will leave these swirl marks. They're not really visible on a raw fence. Matter of fact, on a raw fence, they actually kind of look like the mill saw, so it's not a big deal. But on an old fence, I have noticed that turbo nozzle definitely leaves swirl marks and definitely it kind of destroys that wood, so use a straight tip. To clean away the bottoms, so you can see down here at the bottom, we've actually pushed this back. We've taken a shovel and we've pulled away from here to make sure we have, about a 1-inch gap down here. Let me zoom in so you can see that. We've actually pulled away a lot of that dirt from the bottom as we're pressure washing. Basic summary, on a new fence, just go ahead and start pressure washing it. Take your time with it. Clean out the bottom, make sure you're good and exposed. Let it dry. Once it dries, come back with a push broom. Just give it a hit. And you'll be able to see all the sawdust here. If I bring it up, especially from the bottom, and there's a ton of sawdust in here on the top. So on a new fence, brush it off and you're ready to go with the stain. Old fence, only a couple panels at a time. Wet it, straight 30-second cleaner, pressure wash, let it dry, give it a good 24-48 hours to dry, then you can go back and stain. One thing you'll notice is that he has a tennis ball stuck in the handle, so he doesn't have to keep squeezing that handle. He also has a 33-inch extension wand and the turbo nozzle. And you can see the distance and the speed that he's using. So while he's shut down, let me show you this equipment real quick. This is the Simpson that I absolutely positively recommend that you get. There's also accessories on that video, like this little piece right here, which is critical. The 30-inch extension wand, which is critical for this kind of cleaning. And then today we're using actually a turbo nozzle. I have 3 of those turbo nozzles. Normally, if you're gonna clean a dirty deck, see this 25-degree, that's what you would use on an old deck. Excuse me, on an old fence. But today, since we don't want any splash up, we're using this turbo nozzle, and we don't mind a little roughing of the grain. We don't mind that because it's not a big issue. Okay guys, one point that I want to cover real quick are here are the factors that influence your pressure washing. Distance, time, and angle. And let me explain. If I use any tip, whether it's a flat tip, whether it's a turbo nozzle, if I shoot at that fence directly on and I'm pressure washing like this, I'll have almost twice the cleaning power as if I were spraying it at an angle like this. The water is being deflected and there's not as much cleaning power. That's always true in pressure washing. Straight on is the highest cleaning effectiveness. Number 2, distance. if I take this turbo nozzle and I put it 4 inches from it and move slowly, I can basically sand this wood down to bare nothing. It's gonna just tear it apart. So as I back off from it, and as I back off, and as I back off from it, I'm gonna have the cleaning effectiveness, or the amount of scrubbing ability, is gonna reduce and reduce. And that's a good thing sometimes. So you always wanna start back and see and test it. Move in until you find your right range. For most people, you're gonna find that range is gonna be somewhere between 12 inches and 18 inches away from your fence, depending on whether you're trying to strip stain. Because if you have stain on your fence and you don't want to strip that, you need to back off and use a good cleaner, and back off and use a light pressure washer. The next one is time. If I were to take a pressure washer and just sit there and hold it in place, I could literally cut through one of those boards if I wanted to. So time is the other factor. So what you want to do is you want to slow it down and go nice and steady and keep it the same. You'll see it. If you've ever pressure washed, or when you do pressure wash, you're going to notice it. If you have to stop for a second and then continue, where you stopped, you're going to have a clear white line, and the rest of it's going to look different. So remember, 3 factors: angle of cleaning, distance of cleaning, and the time of cleaning, the pace that you're going. Those are the 3 things that really influence it. A couple more tips real quick. Of course, eye protection is really important when you're pressure washing. My son was wearing these. I wear gasketed safety glasses, and there's a bunch of different types, and they all work pretty well. And I'll put a link to that'll just link over to Amazon on these type of gasketed. There's a foam gasket inside of this that actually doesn't seal your face. You don't want it 100% sealed, but it brings it in closer. I've found that if you have 100% seal on these, that they have a tendency to fog up from the heat of your actual face. But if you don't have that gasket seal, you'll get water thrown in behind there. You can wear full safety goggles, but I found that these work really well. Hearing protection. He did have hearing protection in most of the time. That one segment he didn't have it in. I just like the regular plugs if you want to wear a headset, because you are going to be out here all day long with that motor running. The pump saver after you shut down is really important. That's one thing that has really extended the life of these pressure washers. Now, in the pressure washer review video I did, I reviewed 2 Simpsons. One was a homeowner model, one was a more extended model. And we have run the living death out of these 2 things. This 2 years in a row we've recommended these same pressure washers as our #1 picks, and they're actually an Amazon choice because of us and our recommendation. And everyone that uses them says, dude, I never need any more power. That's real important. So if you want to clean decks, you can do it the same way. Fences the same way. The only thing with decks is when you're cleaning a deck, a little bit difference is you want to put down your cleaner and really scrub that with a brush, because you usually have a lot more algae and stuff, and you want to clean it. And you don't want to create a whole bunch of grain on a deck. You want to keep it kind of smooth. And that's something that you got to be careful about, is when you're pressure washing real heavy on a flat surface like a handrail or a deck, you'll actually make it more grainy when you do that. That's why you want to back off and use more cleaner. Whereas on a fence, I don't care about that. I actually like the grain. So we really don't care about it. Again, new fence, the turbo nozzle is good. When you get down to the bottom, because of the spinning action, it doesn't blow back at the bottom. A regular fan nozzle will blow back a little bit at the bottom. You're just going to have to accept that. But the turbo nozzle, if you have a stain fence you want to clean, it's going to leave marks. Trust me on this. I've done this so many times. You're going to want a fan. You're going to want a fan. Just use a little more cleaner on an older fence. Now, a lot of people don't realize that on a new fence, you really need to pressure wash it before you stain it. Again, MILL GLAZE needs to be taken off a new fence. It's the resin that heats up. It's all the pressure washing chemicals they put on it. Oh no, we got a squirrel over there. Sorry. The girls are barking at a squirrel. You just want to strip it down and open up those pores. The Olympic maximum... Okay, Linda. Sorry. So the Olympic maximum stain that I talk about, again, is that hybrid, which I absolutely love. It cleans up with soap and water. It lasts a long time. It's what I used on my old brown fence. Absolutely love that stuff. And again, you can put it on the day after a rain. You can put it on. It's okay to put that on damp wood. So I'm actually exhausted, and I'm not kind of looking forward to tomorrow, because tomorrow, now on my staining rig, I actually take a wheelbarrow, and I convert it into a mobile staining station. I use a Graco sprayer. I'll show you all the equipment I use. But what that does is that allows me to just continually move. And I'm going to have probably 2 people behind me with brushes following as I go, because we've got close to 600 linear feet of fence to do. And I'll probably only get the inside of the fence done. I probably won't be able to get the outside of the fence done. And trust me, stain is expensive. Good stain is expensive, but it's worth it. We're using a transparent because we want the wood grain to show through. If you have an older fence that's looking kind of crappy, you may want to go with a semi-transparent. And if you have a really crappy, or if you like a solid color, then go with the solid color stain. You can use oil base if you want. Oil base is a really good penetrator, especially for old wood. But I just love this Olympic Maximum. And make sure it's the one that says cleans up with water. That's one of the ways you can tell. All right, guys. I'm going to go sit down for a while and rest. Because we got to do this stain. We got a bunch of stuff going on. Take care of yourself. Talk to you later. Doc.